making things easier to deal with, especially when it comes to our physical health, is to change the way we perceive things. Because we have simply been taught that our bodies are being attacked by diseases. Go in further and we start to actually look at what's happening. Our bodies are literally responding to our emotional input.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Sayler. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Sayler.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com and from UnderstandingAutoimmune.com, where you can find over I think we're 490. Oh my gosh, we're closing in on 500 episodes of the show. Go check it out. We've got a really interesting topic, and I've met a fantastic person. And don't you just love it when your friends and past guests call you and say, hey, I've got a guest for you? I do, because I think that's fantastic. It's our community that knows some of the most amazing people, and maybe you're one of those amazing people too. I won't say maybe. I know my audience is. I know our community here is amazing. So thank you for joining us. Let me quickly read her bio for you. I want to read it to make sure it's correct, and apologies if my face gets too close to the camera. Our guest today is Lisa Warner, and she is an award-winning international best-selling author, speaker, and featured teacher in the 7-time award-winning documentary, The Inside Effects: How the Body Heals Itself. Love that title, and it's a great documentary, and it's won 7 awards. Amazing. And Lisa's book is called The Simplicity of Self-Healing, now in its 10th anniversary edition. Her book has helped readers around the world to see both disease and healing as a different perspective, and to recognize the incredible self-healing abilities our bodies have. And I am so on board with that. I'm curious about, and we've chatted a little bit, but I'm curious to go deeper into her modalities and her understanding of self-healing. But I know that when I got my diagnosis a decade ago, if I'd followed the exact protocol I had been given, I probably wouldn't be as spry as I am today, because I've tried to adopt a lot of possibilities and a lot of, well, I don't know, what if? And so that's where we're going to go today. We're going to find out some ways of self-healing and understanding ourselves at a deeper level. I'm always a believer of understanding ourselves and others at a deeper level is always a good thing. So Lisa's core message is that we all have the power to heal ourselves, and that healing the body is literally an inside job. So welcome, Lisa. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my goodness, it's fantastic. I know we've chatted a little bit. You have the most amazing survivor to thriver story. We just love these stories because it shows us possibilities and these what ifs and these opportunities for us to go with one. I'll say even sometimes one simple little change, the whole world changes. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
I grew up as a healthy, fit athlete. I had a body that just did anything that I asked of it. I was a highly skilled figure skater, and so I could jump through the air and spin like a top and do all kinds of cool things with this incredible body. But at the same time, when it came to trying to adult and get a job and earn a living, I wasn't nearly as adept at doing all of that as I was at figure skating. And even though I taught figure skating and did some amazing things in the figure skating world, when it came to money and relationships and just being in this incredibly crazy world that we live in, like I was not functioning nearly as well as I would have enjoyed functioning. And so I've really found myself struggling. I was really struggling with money And I was really struggling trying to fit in because my view of the world was very different than pretty much everybody else around me. I had started out as a very little girl. When I would go to sleep at night, I would just find myself in the space of light and unconditional love. And it was
Wow.
just this incredibly beautiful space of being. And I knew that space is God. This is where all life comes from. And it is just so beautiful. And if you listen to people's stories of who have near death experiences, they describe the same basic thing. There's just so much light and so much love. And from that space, I knew that space is forever and eternal. And I knew that space is where we come and go from. And I knew that I could turn around, so to speak, from that space, and I could look at the earth and I could see all of the wars, all of the fighting, all of the whose God is better than whose. And I could see that humanity was not really remembering this space. I could actually see the amnesia. So I felt
Wow.
very safe, unsafe from a very early age because I knew that people who spoke about this space, a lot of times they met with a very unsavory ending.
Oh
And
my
as
gosh. As a little person, I'm just thinking,
right,
what a huge concept, I guess I would say, as a little person and getting people to believe you or or unfortunately, maybe them trying to educate you. What a stress-inducing environment.
absolutely, because even though I lived in a lovely small town, lots of nature, it was a lovely environment. There was a lot of great things. I grew up in Lake Placid, New York, with the Olympics and that Olympic spirit, and there was a lot of from the outside, my life looked phenomenal. However, on the inside, like I knew that nobody around me knew what I knew. And I knew that it really wasn't safe for me to know what I knew. And I wasn't going to be able to really connect to other people through that lens. So, as a very little girl, I decided that I was going to have to give up my inner knowing just in order to fit in and to survive. So that was the setup for my lifetime when I found myself really not surviving very well in the world and just really struggling. And then finding myself facing cancer, I thought, I can't do this. I can't continue down this path because one of the things that I saw as a little girl, I could see all of the old people in the nursing homes in bodies that were not functioning. And so I could see that they were just these death watch facilities. And I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt, I was not where we were supposed to be. That was not the, pardon me, the divine design. And I knew that our bodies were supposed to live a very long time. But when I looked around the world, it was like, wow, nobody's really doing that. So I just figured I must be wrong. I must be crazy. I'm just going to go along with the program and just do what everybody else does. You know what? I can't do what everybody else does in order to heal. I have to remember what I knew at 2 years old.
Oh my gosh. First, that's so sad. And yet, I've heard stories similar to that where people said, I gave up a part of me to fit in over here or over there. And I've often wondered if part of that stress of giving up part of yourself, to me, it makes sense that it would lead to some sort of dis-ease within the body structure of the flow of the natural flow of things.
Absolutely.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
There was a great deal of shame that I had for giving up my inner knowing. That was one of the burdens that I was carrying was shame and guilt for not being able to be who I truly am.
Now, was
So
that self-applied or was that coming from somewhere else?
it was also reflected in the world around me
Mm.
with a family member who was very critical and judgmental of me all the time. And because I didn't see the same way that they saw, I was always wrong. So that just served to really dig in that shame and, you know, thinking that I was supposed to be this some incredible version of myself that I couldn't possibly ever live up to.
That's
Inter-
interesting to me because a lot of times I hear from other people with these wonderful survivor to thriver stories is similar things. Like other people were telling me how it was supposed to be, or other people were telling me what was, I'll put in air quotes, the truth. And yet it never rang true for that person. It's interesting you use shame. That's a fascinating one to me, but the incredible amount of stress that it put on them in trying to fit into a world they didn't fit into. I'm going to go tangential on just really quickly because there was a couple of lines in your book that I wrote down here, and I think it fits in here really well. And that was the part of your book where we're talking about the dimensions of that cause pain, and that there are two sides to every coin, and you have to take the bad with the good. And that was not your quote; it was you just talking about this old saying out there that there were two sides to every coin. And I resonated with that. I've heard that since childhood, that idea. Talk to us about why that isn't true.
the coin is the coin. The body is the body. We'll bring it around to health and healing. Like our body is our body. And what our bodies do is what our bodies do under the given circumstances. In any moment, your body is doing something. And when you're looking at the body doing that something as a bad something, then we perceive the whole thing that our body is doing as something bad. But when we can flip it over and see that we can also look at that as the body is actually healing, the body is doing something good. If the body is creating a tumor, for example, the body is creating that for a reason. And we can look at that reason as something negative, that we're being attacked by some disease, and then that becomes our experience. But when we can flip it around and we go, oh, my body's doing exactly what it's designed to do under the circumstances I'm providing, let me provide a different set of circumstances, then we start to understand that there's nothing to fight in our bodies. The symptom is exactly the same, but we can look at it as disease or we can look at it as healing.
Mm. I've always looked at symptoms like messages.
Mhm.
Or hello, pay attention here. Oftentimes people say it came out of the blue, and then
Yeah.
as you begin to go backwards and dissect it, there were many choice points. We'll use the word tumor before the tumor, that
Mhm.
there were many opportunities the body might have been knocking, going, hello.
Yeah.
Before, but it's only in the listening that we can, and knowing how to listen, that we can actually begin change before it becomes mission critical, where I think this goes. What about you?
Yeah. The symptoms and signs show up as feeling uncomfortable. It shows up as feelings, i.e., emotions, energies in motion, anxiety, fear, doubt, guilt, shame, blame, anger, rage, resentment. All of these negative or highly charged emotions are signs and symptoms. And they're signs and symptoms that we're thinking something that is out of alignment with our soul. Because who we are as grand beings of light is pure love and light, peace, ease, harmony, joy, like all those things that feel really good because they're in alignment with who we are. They're in harmony with who we are as a soul. But the anger, blame, shame, guilt, rage, resentment, all of those things, they don't really feel good in our bodies. But we're taught to just ignore that. And those things are always the things that precede a physical change in our bodies because we're not meant to carry that baggage around. Because we have learned to stuff our emotions, say in our backpack, it's, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much shame, but I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to get rid of it. So I'm just going to put it back here in my backpack and I'm just going to pretend that it's not there. Because if I pretend that it's not there, maybe it'll go away. But unfortunately, that's really not how it works. But as we have more and more kind of these rocks in our backpack, the body eventually goes, hey, you got a bunch of rocks back here. And in order for me to carry these rocks, I have to change. Because if we have a really heavy backpack, our posture changes, right? So it's not a literal backpack, but it's all of these heavy emotions. And our bodies change with all of these emotions. So
Oh,
if we have a fear of death, for example, we have something like really active as, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm going to die, or I wonder if my spouse or my parent or is going to die, and we have a lot of charged energy in that, our lungs respond to that particular fright. When we're worried about that, about breathing the breath of life or not breathing the breath of life, the lungs start to build extra cells so that we have better chance of continuing to breathe the breath of life, whether it's us or somebody else. The body doesn't discern our thoughts. Our thoughts are our thoughts. Our bodies respond to our thought patterns. So this is one of the reasons why lung cancer is, I think it's the second most common cancer. It's because you get a first diagnosis and you go, oh my gosh, am I going to die? And then the lungs start creating these extra cells.
oh, I can see where that you're holding your breath basically. And that's
Exactly.
and I know from my trainings in the unconscious too, just to bring it around to, is that since the unconscious doesn't have a sense of time, it really doesn't matter when those stressors started. We'll continue to act as if it's still happening unless we work to release that energy. I find this interesting, that the idea of the symptoms, whether they're ours or some loved ones or someone else in our world, how those would affect our unconscious and our body responses is also fascinating, that we could have a physical experience based on a loved one having a diagnosis that was less than positive.
Because it's our emotional input that our body is responding to. So no matter where the input is coming from, it's still being thought in our thinker,
Right.
right? So it's still our stuff. When we're allowing ourselves to get pulled off balance and go into fear, doubt, guilt, shame, blame, worry, that's on us. Like we don't have to take on other people's things. We can still hold space for them. We can still be in a space of balance, even if they're going through a hard time.
It's a little more difficult if excuse me. It's a little more difficult, A, if it's a loved one, or B, if it's yourself, to
Right?
to hold those positive thoughts. Do you have any tips for people to be able to hold those thoughts? Oftentimes, I have found the road to catastrophic thinking was much quicker and faster and easier than any other road of positive thinking.
Absolutely, because we're programmed with that. There's catastrophic thinking everywhere being broadcast all the time.
And
So,
reinforced.
absolutely, yes. So, yeah, I have two answers to that. My first answer is to realize that we are souls, eternal beings, first and foremost. We can't be not our soul. The soul is non-physical, it is eternal. And being human is just an experience that we as the soul are having. So ultimately, there really is no death. Even if the body stops, we are not these bodies. We are the souls animating the bodies. So no matter what experience we have here in the physical realm, we keep on going. Even when we finish this one experience, we go on to another one. Sometimes people can wrap their mind around that, and sometimes they can't. This is all part of becoming healthy again, is to recognize who we actually are here on this planet. And the other way of making things easier to deal with, especially when it comes to our physical health, is to change the way we perceive things, because we have simply been taught that our bodies are being attacked by diseases. But when we go in further and we start to actually look at what's happening, our bodies are literally responding to our emotional input. So our bodies are literally on our side, and our bodies are morphing and changing based on our thought patterns, our morphogenic field. So whatever is happening in our morphogenic field, our aura, our non-physical parts, the non-physical is impacting the physical. The physical is responding to the non-physical input. So everything the body does is biological. Our bodies are biological. Everything they do is logical. But if we have been taught that, oh, your body's doing something, is being attacked by a disease, we bypass the logic and we go straight into the programming. And we just live out that story that we have been told, even though the story is not true.
There are so many questions I have, Lisa, but we need to take a quick commercial break. And during that break, I will put my question into some sort of logical place. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com and, of course, UnderstandingAutoimmune.com. And I'm here with Lisa Warner, and she is an award-winning international bestselling author, speaker, and featured teacher in the 7-time award-winning documentary, The Inside Effects: How the Body Heals Itself. And Lisa, not that I disagree at all in my 10 years of healing, or my whole lifetime of healing, because in hindsight, I realized my first autoimmune was when I was 16 years old, but it was not labeled that way. In hindsight, I'm glad, but who knows where my unconscious, conscious mind and everything else at that young age would have ended up differently. However, I just have so many questions about, I think the first one is, I think your sense of knowing is quite unique. What tips do you have for people that they can get to that actual place of knowing?
There has to be a desire to discover your knowing. So for me, when I knew a lot of stuff when I was 2 years old, I was still directly connected to source.
Which is amazing.
Babies that are born are connected to source. But because we believe that life begins when we pop out of the womb and that the babies are just a completely blank slate and don't know anything, we just assume that babies don't know anything. We assume that they need to be taught. But if our consciousness was actually allowed to develop naturally, we would retain our natural connection to source. So when I found myself facing this cancer, I knew that the medical route was not for me.
To me, is incredibly brave. I want
Well,
to go tangential for a quick. I know I'm not coming from your perspective completely. I'm on board and I believe it because I've lived it for the last 10 years. However, I think that's really a brave thing to do.
I don't know if it was brave or whether I was just scared to death of the whole idea. But by that time, I had really started to understand that we are creator beings. We create our own reality. Like, I didn't know how I had created that, but I knew that I did not want to live that story of cancer. I didn't want anything to do with that as my life story. So I knew just instinctually that if I went the medical route, meaning you go to the doctor, you do the chemo, you do the radiation, those are all part of cancer. And cancer and health are two totally different things. I didn't want anything to do with that reality. I didn't want to have anything to do with generating that as my reality. So I knew that I couldn't go that route, that I had to take a different route. I needed health, and I needed to know how to be the master of my own molecules. And I knew that nobody else was going to teach me how to be the master of my own molecules. I was going to have to get that directly from my higher self. from God, source, universe, soul, whatever word you want to put on it. I needed my higher intelligence to drop in and show me how to be a masterful human. So I decided to start meditating every day. And I asked the question, what do I need to know about this in order for it to change? And I sat in that question every single day until the answer actually just dropped right in. And it was clear as a bell that the answer was, hey, Lisa, your body is not being attacked by some killer disease. Your body is functioning exactly the way it is designed to function. It is responding to your emotional input. You've got shame, blame, fear, doubt. I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. You have all of this in your energy field, and that is informing your body. Your body is forming itself to match those inputs. And in that moment, I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that was true. I knew instantly that there was nothing wrong with my body. What was wrong was the input that was coming in, that I had to change the way I thought. I needed to change my consciousness and become a more masterful creator.
Which is fascinating to me. A couple of weeks ago, we had Marcus Bird on,
Oh,
who
yeah.
talked about meditation and the power of meditation and how
Yeah.
transformative it is. I liked your definition of the word inform. I'd never thought of it that way, that informing, you're creating things in form. I love that definition. Thank you for sharing that. I love these moments. The audience knows I'm a word nerd. And so I love these moments of, wow. So in form, like, yeah, but you're also creating it in form. And is that really what you want to be doing?
Exactly. And look at all the information that is being broadcast on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Whether it's through your friends going, I heard, or of course, social media going, the latest, greatest. And then, of course, we can always go back to the good, trusted white coat authority. So,
When we look at all the information that we absorb on a daily basis, that is, oh my gosh, oh no, what's going to happen? Oh my God. If we are absorbing that, we are literally informing ourselves and our lives with that's coming at us. We're allowing the external world to shape our reality for us. And it's come time right now, from my perspective, this is the great awakening. This is the time of the great shift from the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, back into the age of light. It is the enlightening ourselves, turning our own light back on, noticing our higher intelligence, and starting to allow peace and ease to come back in. And that's up to us, is to be able to draw in and draw forth the peace, the ease, the joy that is already inside.
My inner word nerd is jumping out here too. I loved how you described the enlightening, turning on the inner light. As you said the word enlightening, though, before you mentioned the inner light, my brain went to that topic of lightning, like lightening the load, loosening, giving
Yeah.
up, not as heavy, lightning.
Yes. Joy, ease, peace, happiness, curiosity, excitement, enthusiasm. Those all feel really great. They're uplifting, they're lightening us because we are literally beings of light. We're literally made of light. If you put any part of the body under an electron microscope and get all the way down to the cellular structure, it's all light. We're literally not as solid as we appear to be. So, as beings of light, it is up to us to inside lighten ourselves to become the light that we truly are.
Mm, amazing. Now, to do that, and I understand the topic of meditation, was that it? I mean, that
Oh,
in a way that's amazing, but I'm like, seems so simple. I'm overthinking this, aren't I?
it's called the simplicity of self-healing. It's
Okay.
really not difficult, but it was really a shift of perspective. I stopped looking at the physical stuff and I started looking at the energy. I started noticing my emotions, emotion, energy in motion, emotion. I started looking at the emotions. I started looking at, am I afraid? Do I have fear in my energy field? Because I noticed that the energy field, our morphogenic field, our aura, whatever you want to call it, I call it the globe. My logo here is a person meditating inside a snow globe. That snow globe represents our energy field.
Nice.
And anything that's inside our energy field gets reflected back to us in the external world. So we are literally informing the molecules around us as to what we expect to see. But we're allowing the external world to inform us. So what I started to do is I started to look at, do I have fear? Do I have fear in my energy field? Okay, there's some fear. Let me gather the fear up from my energy field. I started visualizing it like a little black cloud in my energy field. And I would start gathering it up in one space and I would clear it out. And I started clearing my energy field just using some just very simple techniques. You just visualize it. It's really all it comes down to. So I started clearing my energy field. I was having anxiety attacks. I was having these panic attacks. And it was like, oh my gosh. And it would literally devastate me for a few days. Like I would just go and hide in my house for days and not come out. So I was having these like horrific panic attacks. And so pretty soon I started to understand, wait a second, this is a frequency that my body is feeling. Because I started to notice that every time there was a solar flare, it was like at the height of the solar flares years ago. And I was like, every time there was a solar flare, I would start to feel anxious. And I was like, wait a second, my body is feeling frequency. So this anxiety is a frequency. I don't need to let that override me. So I started breathing through it and I started breathing it out. I started just clearing it out of my energy field. And pretty soon I never had another anxiety attack ever in my life because it was no longer in my energy field. So I stopped looking at the physical stuff and I started looking at the non-physical stuff. What are the thoughts? What are the emotions? What is the energy? And once I had sufficiently cleared my energy field, my thought processes became far more clear. And I started to be able to see more. I started to be able to see a bigger picture. I started to raise up in my consciousness, like raising up in a hot air balloon. It's like when you're on the ground, you see what's on the ground. But once you start raising up, oh, wow, look at way over there and look at way over there. You start to see a broader picture. So as we raise our consciousness, it's similar to that. We start seeing a different story. So where I was looking at, oh my gosh, I'm being attacked by some killer disease, my body's doing this thing, I started to expand my perspective. And I started to see, wait a second, my body is responding to my emotions. And at the time, like I knew for sure that I was correct. Like I knew that was true because it was just, you get to a point where you just see truth. And at the same time, I thought, who's going to listen to me? Who's going to believe me? I'm not the one
That
that's
came
going to,
through my head. You're like,
right?
okay,
Like, I'm
how
not
do I
going to,
explain this to my family that I'm taking a different tactic or taking a different route? Or I can see a lot of outside pressure to do, I'll put air quotes, the norm.
yeah, absolutely. So after I healed myself, I was like, all right, I was still struggling with money in my life and right livelihood. And I thought, what am I supposed to do now? And I just kept getting right. So I didn't even know what to write. So I thought I'll just journal, I'll just write down all the stuff that I realized when I was on my healing journey so I don't forget it. And about 25 or 30 pages in, I was like, oh, I'm writing a book. Great.
I'm a big fan of journaling, though, even if you're not writing a book.
Oh, for
I
sure.
love that it became a book, but I am a huge fan of journaling. Even I was taught years ago this by a mentor, and I've shared it on the show. I haven't shared it in a while. Is my mentor said to always in your journal, always write on the right-hand side, leave the left side blank. And then he was very prescriptive and he would do it monthly, me not so much, and it works either way. So he would go back and reread some of the highlights or some of the things, just wherever spirit led him to open to a page. And he would read what he'd written on the right and write what had changed on the left.
Oh, nice. I like that.
And I find that really helpful in showing how much you've healed, how much has changed in your life, maybe what worked and you've forgotten and you slipped a little bit. I've been known to do that. So I'm a big fan, but I digress, Lisa. So as you were journaling, you realized you were actually getting information that was important, not just to your own healing, but to a much larger audience.
Yeah, even after I wrote my book, I really didn't advertise it or anything. I was just because I really just thought, who's going to believe me? They're just going
Well,
to
no
think I'm
offense,
some,
but that did go through my head a little bit
yeah, of
ago.
course.
When I got your
Please.
book, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, it went through my head first for sure. And but it was about 2 years after I had written my book that a friend of mine had read the book and she was all excited about the book. And she ended up introducing me to another friend of hers. And this other friend of hers said, "Oh, you're the one that knows German New Medicine." And I was like, "Wait, who? What?"
What?
And she said, "Your book. It's the basis of German New Medicine." And instantly I knew that somebody had done the research. It turns out that this man named Dr. Hammer in Germany had, in the late 70s, he had a teenage son who had been shot and wounded. And 3 months, the son struggled for 3 months and then passed away.
Mm.
And 3 months later, Dr. Hammer and his wife both came down with cancer. He came down with testicular cancer and she came down with breast cancer. And I'm a healthy, fit guy. I work in oncology, for goodness sakes. Like, I understand cancer. I don't know why this happened. The only thing I can think of is this horrible struggle that we just went through affected my body. So he went to the men in his practice who had been diagnosed with testicular cancer and he asked them, what had happened in your life just prior to the diagnosis? Every single one of them had struggled with the death of a child. And he was like, that can't be a coincidence. So then he asked if he could do a CAT scan of their brain and just see what was going on in there. And they agreed. And he found that every single person had wherever it is on the brain, they had a spot on the brain. And it was the same for everyone. So he realized, all right, this part of the brain is controlling the testicles. And then he went to the women with breast cancer. He went to the people with pancreatic cancer. And he did the same thing over and over. And every time he asked, what had happened in your life just prior to the diagnosis? And every single person had suffered a similar type of trauma. So he ended up discovering the 5 biological laws. These are universal laws, just like the law of attraction or the law of reciprocity or any of the ways the universe works. He discovered the ways our biology works. And our biology is responding to our psychology. He discovered that every single dis-ease started with getting knocked off balance. Something upsets you in your life and you don't have a way of regaining your balance instantly. So it's something that catches you off guard. So he discovered all of the different ways that we get caught off guard. And if we get caught off guard in this way, then this part of your body will respond. If you get caught off guard that way, this other part of your body will respond. And he realized that our bodies are literally trying to help us through the crisis. So everything the body does is biological. So for him, with the testicular cancer, if you lose an offspring, survival of the species says you replace the offspring. So during that time that he was going, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my son? But his body was responding to that biologically. meaning create more cells in the testicles so that if you need to replace the offspring, you have a better chance of doing that.
But why damage cells or cells that cause damage?
That damage is an assumption.
Okay. So sorry about that, but that's where my brain went.
That's programming. That's what we're taught.
Yeah,
So the cells are literally not damaged. They're
they're
not
just
doing,
cells.
yeah, the cells are biological. They're doing exactly what they're designed to do. So a damaged cell, like for example, so once the, go back to the thing we used at the beginning about the lungs, if the lungs have been creating extra cells, if once we get over the hump and, oh, phew, okay, we're good. We're not going to die. Everything is good. We find resolution. Now the body doesn't need those extra cells anymore. So now the body needs to get rid of those cells. So the body has a built-in little surgical team that called bacteria and fungi and all of that. And those things go in and they start getting rid of those extra cells as the body is getting rid of the cells it no longer needs. We have pain, we have fever, we have swelling, we have coughing, we have congestion, all of those things that we call sickness is actually the body healing itself. So goes back to the two sides of the coin. Because we haven't been looking at, oh dear, I had a death fright and my lungs were building up extra cells. Now everything is okay. I've found resolution. My body no longer needs these cells. We haven't seen any of that part. As soon as the body starts getting rid of those cells and we have pain, fever, coughing, congestion, we go, uh-oh, there's something wrong with me. And then we go to the doctor and we ask, what's wrong with me?
Reinforcing the question.
Right? So we assume there's something wrong. So that's what happens. That's what we create. Back to your question, like, how do we become more peaceful with our bodies and accepting of what's happening with our bodies? And my other response, besides realizing that we are eternal beings, is understanding how our bodies actually function and understanding that our bodies are doing exactly what they're designed to do. And they're literally designed to live for hundreds of years. Our bodies are literally trying to keep us alive. But when we believe that they're being attacked by diseases and then we battle the disease, our body simply becomes the battleground. And we know what happens on a battleground.
Wow. Okay. So what would be the next step? Because part of me is going, I can see a lot of external forces trying to change my mind. Like I've known people where family members are offering solution after solution, whether that's helpful or not. We've done some meditation. We've come to some realizations about who we are, what's going on within our body, what our body's attempting to do. I mean, what is the root source and what is the root question that the body's asking or wanting resolved. I'm still curious, how does it, I'm still curious, like, how did you know? Did the tumor just disappear, or
Yeah,
I don't know. This is out of my realm of understanding here that I'm.
the body brings itself back to balance. When I brought myself back into balance, when I found peace and harmony inside, rather than the, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me, fear, doubt, guilt, shame, blame, when I brought myself back into balance, then my body rebalanced itself automatically. The body is reflecting us. So when I believed I'm not okay, the body has to reflect that, because the body is the suit that we're wearing. It is to be the direct reflection of who we are being. We are grand beings of light. There's nothing wrong with us ever. But when we come into the earth plane, you're not old enough, you're not young enough, why did you do that? There's something wrong with you. And then we start to believe that there's something wrong with us, that we're not okay. that we're not okay as we are, that we're in the wrong body, that we've done something wrong, that whatever we believe, we start to create, to reverse engineer and realize that we are these grand souls, eternal beings made of love and light. When we come into these bodies, if we can retain that, if we can remember who we truly are, then we can help the next generations, the young ones coming up who still remember. We can encourage them to keep remembering, and we can start to change the course of our future as humanity. But we each, as the adults now, that we've suffered all of this programming and we have the amnesia and we don't remember where we were prior to this incarnation. We don't have access to our soul's memories at this point. It's up to us to really reconnect to that soul and start clearing away all of the amnesia, start clearing away the fog, start remembering how to be a creator, start to notice, what is it that I am actually creating? What am I focused on? Because what I'm focused on is what I am creating. So if I'm focused on, oh my gosh, those people are wrong and these people are right, and this has to, and this, and the economy and the war, if I'm focused on all of that, I am not focused on inner peace. I am not focused on who I truly am. But when we start to turn it around and we start to choose to remember who we are, we start to feel that inner peace, and we can start to separate ourselves and become the observer of the external world. There was a great teacher once who said, be in the world, but not of the world. And that's what that means, is to be able to be in your own self, being peaceful, calm, happy unto yourself, without allowing the external world to knock you off balance. And when we're able to maintain our own balance, the body just simply maintains balance. We get brand new cells every day, all the time. But our bodies can only regenerate to the level of our consciousness. When we expect to age, when we expect disease, when we expect death and degradation, that's what we create. But we don't have to. It can be different, but we have to be willing to look in a different direction.
Oh, I love all of that. This is so fascinating, Lisa. We'll have to have you back because I know I've just scratched the surface here.
I'd love to come back.
We only have about 4 minutes left, and I want the audience to know more about your book and more about you and whatever final thoughts you'd like to share.
The book is available on Amazon. It really just, it's a good primer. It's just a really good way to just start to shift your consciousness and shift the way you're looking at yourself and at your body, and to be able to start noticing energy, because we have all just been taught that if it's not physical, it's not real. Unfortunately, it's the non-physical stuff that generates the physical stuff. So we need to start becoming aware. We have to start seeing the unseen.
And I want to throw in that this is an absolute compliment. It's a very easy read. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to slog through some book. It's awful statistics on how many people really read books in adulthood. But it's a very easy read. I breezed through it and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much. And the other, you were asking earlier about the movie, the inside effects, how the body heals itself. And that's another great place to start. There are about 30 different experts in the field, some well-known, some not so well-known, were all asked the same questions by this brilliant director, Keith Leon S., who this is his first foray into filmmaking, and he's won 7 awards for it already. He's making a really good first step into that world. But if you go to theinsideeffects.com, you can sign up and you can find the link to check out that movie online. That's also a really great way to just start to notice, what do people think about this? What else is possible here? And the more we ask good quality questions, what else is possible? What can I know about this? Or what do I need to know about this? And we get quiet and we allow the answers to come. The answer always comes. It's just we're so programmed to think and think and think and think that the answer doesn't have any room to come in. So we have to be able to start breathing and getting quiet and tuning in and just asking some good quality questions, not the questions of what's wrong with me or why me, but we
The
don't
most
want those.
commonly known question.
Exactly. Let's ask a better quality question. What's it going to take for me to heal myself? What's it going to take for me to fully rejuvenate my body? It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen.
I love that. We had Bev Martin on the show a few weeks ago, and I'm paraphrasing it. I feel like I'm paraphrasing it, but it was a really fascinating question of asking, what do I need to know?
Mm-hmm.
I liked that one too. So that was a nice, simple question I could easily remember as well. Now, I wanted everybody to know the title of Lisa's book is called The Simplicity of Self-Healing. And yes, it's available online. But I also wanted to share your website, and that's connectingyoutoyou.com, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being on the show. We'll have to have you back. I like to play with these. My mind loves the word play.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's what we're supposed to be doing here.
exactly. If it sounds like work, I'm afraid part of the brain will go, oh, that sounds like work.
Right?
So everybody, let's play with these concepts. We'll have Lisa back soon we'll dig into this a lot deeper, because I know even though her book is called The Simplicity of Self-Healing, I think there's some old programming that I need to work through. So
We all do. We've all been programmed in so many ways.
absolutely. So community, thank you for being here. I so appreciate you. And if you have a chance, put some of your own thoughts down in the comments. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. We're trying very hard to grow our reach, and the algorithms love those subscribes and those notification little bells that you can link to as well. So if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. It helps us grow the show and bring us our message out that you are not alone and you are more than enough, and all those wonderful things about being part of a community that's dedicated to healing. Everyone, have a great week, whatever your adventures. Join me next week for another brand new show. Enjoy.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.